Have you ever looked into her eyes and felt like you were doing everything right, yet something was missing? You gave your time, your heart, maybe even your soul, and still, it felt like love kept slipping through your fingers. Not because you weren't enough, but because you misunderstood how women fall in love. See, most men chase love the way they chase success: direct, loud, impressive, big gestures, fancy dinners, endless texts. But women don't fall in love through noise. They fall in love through energy, through consistency, through the way you make them feel when you say nothing at all. What if I told you that love, real love, grows not in the spotlight of romantic performance, but in the quiet space where a woman feels emotionally safe, seen, and slowly drawn in, not overwhelmed? This video isn't about tricks or tactics. It's about returning to something ancient, a deeper understanding of feminine psychology, emotional chemistry, and the silent presence of the Stoic man. Dopamine explains her spark. Oxytocin explains her bond. But it's your steadiness, your silence, your standards that explain her obsession. You see, women aren't looking for perfection. They're searching for resonance. A man whose energy feels like home. A man who leads not by force, but by emotional gravity. Today, we're going to explore the invisible mechanics of female attraction. Why she pulls away when you get too close. Why she leans in when you detach. Why your stillness can say more than your words ever could. We'll walk through 10 Stoic truths that show you how women actually fall in love. Not with a man who proves himself, but with one who knows himself. And if any part of this resonates with the silent strength in you, the part of you that's tired of chasing and ready to draw in, not through effort, but through essence, then this video was made for you. If these words stir something in your chest, leave a like, share your thoughts below, or subscribe to this channel, Stoic Now. Your presence here might not just change your love life. It might shift the way you see yourself. Because the truth is this: women don't fall in love with what they see. They fall in love with what they feel. And what they feel begins in the invisible. Now let's begin. Number 1. Presence is greater than performance. There's a quiet power in a man who knows how to simply be, with no need to prove, to perform, or to impress. And yet, most men, when standing before the woman they desire, step into a role instead of into themselves. They tell stories, crack jokes, try to fill the space with sound, believing that the right words will capture her heart. But women don't fall in love with a man's performance. They fall in love with his presence. Presence isn't about being perfect. It's about being here. It's in the way your eyes meet hers without flinching. In how you listen, not just with your ears, but with your soul. It's in your breath, your posture, the steadiness of your energy. When a man is truly present, he becomes a mirror, a space where a woman feels seen, not judged, held, not overwhelmed. Seneca once wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." And that's the paradox women sense. A man who is fully here, not chasing a result, not needing validation, not performing for applause. He becomes magnetic without trying. Let me tell you a story. A client of mine once described his first few dates with a woman he truly liked. He tried so hard, planned the nights perfectly, talked nonstop, complimented her at every turn. She laughed, smiled, but slowly drifted away. On his next date, with someone new, he did the opposite. He showed up grounded, quiet, focused. He asked more than he answered. He let silences linger. And to his surprise, she leaned in, literally. She asked about him, smiled deeper, opened up quicker. What changed? His energy did. He stopped performing. He started being. This isn't about pretending to be mysterious. It's about shedding the impulse to entertain. The more you try to be interesting, the less you actually are. The moment you let go of that effort, you become real. And that's what women fall in love with. Reality, not the role. Being present also means not rehearsing your next sentence while she's still speaking. It means you aren't driven by outcome, because you understand that her desire isn't yours to control. You are the steady mountain, not the shifting storm. And yes, it can feel terrifying at first, to sit in silence, to resist the urge to impress. But silence is not emptiness. It is spaciousness. And in that space, something sacred happens. She feels safe. And safety, emotional safety, is the soil where love grows. So, ask yourself, when you're with her, are you fully there? Or are you lost in the noise of trying to be enough? Because when you stop chasing love and start offering your presence, she doesn't just see you, she feels you. And that's when love begins. Number 2, the power of mystery. She doesn't fall in love with what's said. She falls in love with what's left unsaid. A woman's heart is drawn not to the map, but to the mystery. And yet, many men expose every detail too soon. They unfold their entire life story over 2 coffees, thinking transparency builds trust. But love isn't built like a resume. It's breathed into life through tension, wonder, and unanswered questions that echo long after the moment ends. The Zygarnik effect, a psychological phenomenon, teaches us something powerful. We remember what's incomplete. What is unresolved stays alive in the mind. When a man reveals too much, too fast, he gives her closure before a journey has even begun. But when he holds something back, not out of fear, but intention, he awakens her curiosity. Not confusion, curiosity. Imagine meeting someone who doesn't rush to be understood, who answers your questions with just enough light, but never the whole fire, who listens more than he reveals, who seems like there's more behind the silence than the speech. That man, he's unforgettable. Mystery isn't about playing games. It's about living with inner richness. A man who has a world within him doesn't hand out souvenirs at the door. He invites discovery. Slowly, naturally. I once knew a man who ruined every first date the same way. He'd share his childhood traumas, his failed relationships, his 5-year plan, all within the first hour. I just want to be honest, he said. But honesty without pacing is emotional dumping. Women don't want to be therapists. They want to be intrigued. When he learned to hold back, to ask more questions, to leave space, to wonder, not just tell, his love life changed. She leaned in, not because he gave more, but because he gave less, better. Seneca warned, "It is a rough road that leads to the heights of greatness." And in love, that road is paved with restraint, the strength to leave a little unsaid, to know that being known is a journey, not a sales pitch. When you carry silence with intention, when your life is full enough that you don't need to pour it out for validation, you radiate depth. And women sense that, not with their logic, but with their intuition. And their intuition is never attracted to the man they can read in one sitting. Don't be the book she finishes in a night. Be the one she returns to again and again, always finding something new. Not because you're withholding, but because you're whole. Let her discover you, not consume you. Number 3, emotional tension builds desire. Comfort makes the body relax. But tension, that's what awakens the soul. Love, contrary to fairy tales, doesn't bloom in predictability. It thrives in the space between certainty and wonder, in the moments when emotions aren't handed out like candy, but earned through presence and mystery. Women don't fall in love with stability alone. They fall in love with contrast, with the way your calm holds their chaos, with how you appear and then disappear just enough to be missed. This is where the science of intermittent reinforcement comes in, a principle rooted in behavioral psychology. It reveals a simple truth. We value what we can't always have. When affection is given unpredictably, the brain releases more dopamine, more emotional intensity, more longing, more desire. Constant rewards become noise. Occasional ones become music. A man who gives too much too soon may think he's showing love, but what he's actually doing is smothering mystery. She never has a chance to wonder, to reflect, to reach. Let me give you a real story. A man once came to me confused. He was consistent, kind, always available. Yet she drifted. Another man, less present, more emotionally controlled, seemed to occupy her mind far more. What was the difference? The second man created emotional texture. He wasn't playing games. He simply had a life. He responded when ready, not when desperate. He didn't react to every emotion. He met it with calm. She never quite knew what she'd get. And in that space of wonder, she felt more alive. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." Emotional tension does not mean cruelty. It means learning to withhold not out of fear, but discipline. It's the power to not respond instantly, to breathe before acting, to remain rooted when emotions rise. That silence between your messages, that pause before you call back, that space you leave after a powerful conversation, it's not distance. It's design. And in that space, she reflects, she yearns, she remembers. Women fall in love with the feeling of being emotionally moved, not just emotionally met. If every day is the same, her feelings plateau. But if she's given just enough contrast, just enough uncertainty to make the certainty taste sweeter, then you've created emotional gravity. So next time you feel the urge to always be available, always be predictable, remember, desire doesn't grow in the known. It grows in the wait, the question, the quiet ache. Be the storm that visits, not the cloud that lingers. Number 4, the power of silence. Not every silence is absence. Sometimes, silence is strength dressed in stillness. When a woman pulls away, most men chase with words, long messages, emotional appeals, desperate explanations. They try to fix the disconnection with noise. But women don't always hear love through what you say. They feel it most in what you choose not to say, in the restraint, in the dignity of holding your center. True power isn't in persuasion, it's in presence. And sometimes, presence is silent. There's a student I once guided who was ghosted by a woman he deeply cared for. His instinct was to send a heartfelt message, to seek closure, to make her see how valuable he was. But instead, he chose a different path. He chose silence, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. Days passed, then weeks, and then she reached out. Not because he pressured her, but because the absence of his noise made space for her realization. Marcus Aurelius captured it perfectly. The best answer to anger is silence, and the best response to distance is the same. It's a reminder that you are not here to entertain affection. You are here to embody it. When you fall into the trap of over-explaining, you're not connecting, you're controlling. Silence, when rooted in self-worth, is not avoidance. It's awareness. It signals, I am enough. I don't need to prove. Silence also creates tension. Not negative tension, but sacred pause. It allows her to notice, to feel the void, to reflect on your value without the distraction of your pursuit. And reflection is the doorway to reattraction. Imagine this. You're standing at the edge of a cliff. Below is an ocean, calm and wide. You throw a stone. The ripples spread. Then stillness returns. That's your energy when you learn the art of silence. You speak once, then you let it echo. Don't keep tossing pebbles. Let her feel what happens when you are still. Epictetus said, "First learn the meaning of what you say, and then speak." In love, learn the meaning of your silence, and let it speak for you. You are not just a man who talks. You are a man who withholds when it serves peace. You're not unavailable, you're unattached. You're not passive, you're powerful. And that distinction is what turns space into magnetism. So when she pulls away, don't panic. Don't overreach. Simply step back into yourself. Trust the silence. Let it work. Because in that silence, she will hear the one thing you could never say aloud. I don't need you to choose me, for me to still choose myself. Number 5, the man who doesn't need her. He loves her, but he does not need her. And that is what makes her fall. We've been sold a lie, that the more you show her how much you need her, the more she'll stay. That vulnerability means confessing every longing, every ache, every dream that centers around her. But in truth, neediness suffocates. It doesn't inspire connection, it demands rescue. And no woman wants to be someone's emotional oxygen. The man who doesn't need her doesn't love less. He loves with more clarity. He sees her not as a savior, but as a choice. He is whole before she arrives. His world spins with or without her. And that quiet wholeness? It calls to her deeper than any compliment ever could. Neediness is a form of self-abandonment. It says, I can't hold my own silence, so I beg for your sound. It's not romantic. It's noise. It's dependency dressed in flattery. And women, whether they admit it or not, recoil from it. Picture two men. One cancels his plans, reshapes his life, becomes overly available, hoping she'll see how much he cares. The other continues his purpose. He shows warmth, yes, but never at the cost of his direction. She feels it, the difference. One is trying to be chosen. The other is simply choosing her from a place of abundance. Stoic wisdom reminds us, he who is not dependent possesses all things. And it's true, because emotional independence is magnetic. It doesn't say, I don't care. It says, I care deeply, but I will not collapse myself to earn your love. This man doesn't chase validation. He lives aligned with his principles, not her preferences. If she pulls away, he doesn't fall apart. He returns to his mission, to his silence, to his self-respect. And in doing so, he becomes the man who cannot be ignored. She may test him, withdraw, throw emotional sparks to see if he bends. But when he stays centered, when he doesn't become reactive, she sees something rare, a man who leads himself. And that's the kind of man she wants to follow. It's not cruelty, it's clarity. He doesn't say, "I need you to complete me." He says, "You're beautiful, but I was complete before you arrived. I still am, and I choose you freely." Freedom is the foundation of real love, because only when you can walk away does your decision to stay carry any weight. So be that man, the one who doesn't grip, who doesn't beg, who stands still while the world tugs. And from that stillness, let her come to you, not because she has to, but because she wants to. Number 6, masculine calm opens her up. The storm in her heart doesn't need more thunder, it needs your stillness. Women don't fall in love with a man's control over her. They fall in love with the control he has over himself. In a world that rewards loudness and reaction, a man who remains calm under fire becomes a sanctuary. Not because he silences her, but because he doesn't lose himself in her waves. Emotional chaos is a test, and not always consciously. It's the feminine energy searching for grounding. She needs to know, if I lose myself, will you still be here? Not as a rescuer, but as a rock. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. The man who lives by this doesn't panic when her mood shifts. He doesn't meet emotion with fear. He meets it with presence. There's a man I once coached. His girlfriend often erupted during conversations. Not to manipulate, but because she didn't feel safe to feel. He used to match her fire with more fire, until he learned silence. Not the cold kind, but the kind that listens. The kind that breathes. When she raised her voice, he lowered his. Not to win, but to contain. Slowly, her eruptions softened. Why? Because his calm gave her nervous system permission to trust. Masculinity isn't domination. It's containment. Not shutting her down, but holding space for her to unfold without fear. The man who yells, flinches, or defends at every emotional shift only teaches her one thing. I am not safe to be all of me with you. But the man who remains steady, even when he's uncertain, becomes unforgettable. She may not even be able to name why she trusts you more, but she will feel it. In your tone, in your eyes, in your refusal to be pulled into every emotional current. Being that kind of man isn't easy. It takes more than confidence. It takes practice. It takes emotional discipline. It takes knowing your own pain well enough to not project it onto hers. And this is where Stoicism becomes not just a philosophy, but a way of love. You are not her therapist. You are not her fixer. You are not her savior. You are her mirror, her grounding, her calm in the noise. So when she cries, don't flinch. When she rages, don't defend. When she doubts, don't panic. Breathe. Be there. Say less. Feel more. And let your silence hold her storm until the skies in her chest clear on their own. That is what she will never forget. Number 7. Earned intimacy, not instant closeness. Some doors are not meant to be kicked open. They're meant to be unlocked, patiently, gently, with presence. In today's world of fast everything, fast connections, fast confessions, fast intimacy, true emotional closeness has become a lost art. Most men confuse vulnerability with oversharing. They think opening their chest too early proves they're real. But what it often reveals is insecurity masked as honesty. Real intimacy, the kind that lasts, must be earned, not handed out like candy on the first date. There's something deeply attractive about restraint. Not coldness, not games, but restraint rooted in discernment. In knowing that not everyone gets immediate access to your emotional world. That your heart is not a stage for applause, but a temple to be entered with reverence. The Stoics taught temperance, moderation in action, speech, and emotion. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, let your discourse be short, appropriate, and restrained. And in love, this applies even more. A man who shares every detail too soon often creates pressure, not peace. He turns emotional connection into emotional flooding. And while he may feel momentarily seen, the woman often feels overwhelmed, burdened, or simply disinterested. Contrast that with a man who reveals himself slowly, not because he's hiding, but because he respects the process. Each layer revealed is earned by presence, trust, and time. He doesn't rush emotional exposure. He allows it to bloom. There's a quiet power in that, in not trying to impress with your wounds, in not forcing someone to carry your emotional history before they've even learned your favorite song. A student once told me, "But if I don't open up, how will she know I'm real?" I told him, "She'll know you're real by how you live, not how much you bleed on cue." He listened. He slowed down, and she leaned in more than ever before. The paradox? The less you chase emotional closeness, the more it naturally arises. Because intimacy, at its root, is not exposure, it's trust. And trust takes time. You don't give away your inner world like a brochure. You offer it slowly, sincerely, only as safety grows. And she will sense that your self-control is not a wall, but a gate. And when she feels ready, she'll knock. That moment is sacred, because now, connection is mutual. Now, what's shared is valued. Now, she's not just listening, she's invested. So don't force it. Don't flood her with your story. Be calm. Be measured. Let your energy say, "I'm here, and I'll reveal when it's time." Because the men she remembers aren't the ones who told her everything too soon. They're the ones who made her feel safe enough to want to know everything. Number 8. Silent confidence sparks pursuit. Confidence isn't loud. It doesn't shout across the room, doesn't flood her phone with compliments, and it certainly doesn't beg to be noticed. Real confidence whispers in the quiet moments. It's the still presence in a world full of noise. The man who owns the room doesn't always speak the most. He doesn't over-explain, overshare, or overdo. Instead, he moves like someone who knows where he's going, even when no one else is watching. That energy, it draws her in, not because he tries, but because he doesn't. We've been taught to chase, to prove, to perform. But what if true attraction isn't about effort, but energy? Not about declarations, but direction? Epictetus once said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." Silent confidence begins here. It's not performance. It's alignment. It's the quiet knowing that you don't have to convince anyone of your worth. You just have to live it. I remember one man who tried too hard. Every message was a poem. Every meeting, a presentation. And yet, she drifted. Another man said less, smiled with ease, walked his path unshaken, and she couldn't stop thinking about him. Why? Because he didn't need her attention to feel like a man. His presence spoke louder than his words ever could. The masculine stillness, the steady gaze, the grounded posture. These are ancient languages. Women feel them long before they hear your voice. When you speak, your words should only confirm what your energy already revealed. I am enough. I'm not seeking approval. I'm offering presence. This doesn't mean silence out of fear or absence out of insecurity. It means your presence is so whole that she can sense your value without needing constant reminders. There's a line in Stoicism that resonates deeply here. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. The man who constantly craves validation is starving, no matter how much attention he gets. But the man who stands satisfied within himself, he's irresistible. Let her wonder. Let her lean in. Let her ask, why is he so calm? Why isn't he trying to impress me? What's going on inside that I can't quite figure out? That curiosity is magnetic. So next time you're tempted to prove, to perform, to persuade, pause. Let silence do what noise never could. Let your stillness speak. Let your direction be your introduction. She won't chase the man who's everywhere, but she will feel drawn to the man who is somewhere deeply rooted. And when she feels that still power, she won't want to look away. Number 9, standards are magnetic. Not every beautiful face deserves your time. Not every soft voice deserves your silence. And not every moment of attention deserves your energy. What sets a man apart is not how much he gives, but what he refuses to compromise. A man's standards are not walls. They're the spine of his soul. And women feel that deeply. They're not drawn to men who say yes to everything. They're drawn to the ones who know when to say no. Epictetus once wrote, "Know first who you are, and then adorn yourself accordingly." It is not about arrogance. It's about clarity. When you know what you stand for, what you value, and what you will no longer tolerate, you radiate something stronger than charm. You radiate self-respect. I remember a story of a man on a date. She arrived 25 minutes late, no text, no apology. Most men would have brushed it off, smiled politely, let it slide. But he didn't. He looked at her calmly and said, "Respect is my currency, and I don't invest where it's not honored." Then he left. You might think that ended the story, but it didn't. She reached out days later, curious, intrigued, changed. Why? Because he showed her something rare, a man whose boundaries weren't negotiable, even in the face of beauty. Standards are sexy, not because they control others, but because they declare, "I control myself." Too many men bend. They fold their values to avoid discomfort. They tolerate disrespect to keep the peace. But peace built on self-betrayal is not peace, it's self-erasure. Women may not always agree with your standards, but they will always feel safer around a man who has them. Because if he can say no to her, he can say no to anything that would endanger what matters. And that kind of man, he's trusted, desired, respected. This doesn't mean being harsh. It means being whole. It doesn't mean rejecting others. It means refusing to abandon yourself. Your standards aren't a test for her. They are a reflection of what you've tested in life. They come from scars, from growth, from mistakes you've paid for. Don't apologize for them. Stand in them. Let them speak before you do. Because when she sees that you'd rather walk away than break your integrity, that's when she knows you are real. And in a world full of men willing to bend at every smile, the one who stands still becomes unforgettable. Number 10. The man who can walk away is irresistible. The man who can walk away doesn't have to. And that is exactly why she never wants him to. There's something undeniably powerful about a man who stays. Not because he's afraid to lose her, but because he's free to leave and still chooses to stay. That freedom, that fierce inner independence, is magnetic. It's the difference between a prisoner and a king. In love, most men grip too tightly. They fear the silence, the space, the possibility that she might forget them. But in trying to hold her too close, they push her away. What they don't realize is this: a woman doesn't fall in love with a man who clings. She falls for the one who could let go, but doesn't. Seneca once said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." A man driven by fear of loss is never truly present. He's calculating, contorting, constantly performing for approval. But a man rooted in his own wholeness? He's free. He gives love without begging. He receives it without needing it. And that kind of energy is rare. I've seen it play out in countless ways. The man who texted every morning, planned every detail, made her the center of his world. She faded. Not because he was unkind, but because he was dependent. Then there was the man who stayed focused on his path, who offered presence but never chased, who smiled when she pulled back and walked calmly when she disappeared. She came back, not because he demanded it, but because she felt the absence of his steady light. To be irresistible is not to be flawless. It is to be unattached to outcome. To know that your value doesn't rise or fall with someone's attention. To look at love not as possession, but as a choice. And to know that walking away, when needed, is not loss, but dignity. The Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. When you stop trying to control how she feels and start mastering how you show up, you shift everything." She will test this, not maliciously, but instinctively. She will pull back, become distant, uncertain, just to see what you do. And when you don't flinch, when your calm doesn't crack, when your essence doesn't chase, she sees something rare. She sees a man who's whole. And wholeness is what every woman longs to feel beside. So choose love, not because you need it, but because you can. Stay, not from fear, but from freedom. And if ever the day comes where your peace costs too much, walk. Because the man who can walk away is the one she'll never forget. Love, in its truest form, isn't loud. It doesn't rush in to rescue or bend to please. It moves with the calm precision of a man who knows himself, who has learned that the heart must not be thrown into the world like a coin, hoping someone will find it valuable. No, the heart must be offered, not because it aches to be filled, but because it is already full. You've walked with me through this journey, through silence and standards, through mystery and mastery. And if one truth stands taller than the rest, it's this: the man who understands how women fall in love is not trying to manipulate her emotions. he is mastering his own. She doesn't need a man who begs to be seen. She yearns for one whose presence demands awareness, not through volume or validation, but through quiet certainty. Because women, just like men, are not falling in love with perfection. They are falling into presence, into grounded, mature energy, into the echo of a man who doesn't tremble in the face of rejection or lose himself in pursuit of approval. They fall for the man who could walk away, but stays on purpose. Seneca once said, "If you want to be loved, love yourself first." And what is self-love, if not the courage to set boundaries, the wisdom to embrace solitude, the strength to let silence speak? This is what you've learned today. That presence is more powerful than performance. That silence, when used with wisdom, speaks volumes. That mystery is not withholding, but protecting. That calm is not weakness, it is command. And most of all, that standards are not just for choosing others, they are for choosing yourself, every day, with conviction. If you've made it this far, this message is already part of you. Maybe it's been resting quietly beneath the noise of neediness, beneath years of seeking outside approval. But now it has a voice. Let that voice guide you. Love with intention, not addiction. Lead with vision, not reaction. And stay, not to fill a void, but because your soul is grounded enough to offer something real. Now, I leave you with this. Every great love begins not with finding the right person, but with being the right presence. And if this message stirred something within you, don't just move on. Stay a moment longer. Let it settle. Then, if it feels right, share a sign of your presence. Subscribe to Stoic now. Leave a trace in the comments, not for applause, but to keep this fire alive. Because what we're building here isn't just a channel, it's a quiet brotherhood. A space for strength without noise, for love without fear. And remember this, love is never about possession. It is the rare power to choose someone with open hands, not because you lack, but because you overflow. So take this path, not with haste, but with honor. And may every step you take be proof of who you've become.